Hello, my creative friends, and welcome to another episode of The Daily Prompt. I was looking back over yesterday's episode before starting today's episode, and it occurred to me that there's a lot of really good stuff in there, but it's not necessarily terribly concise and clear, and it's a little bit like a first draft. You know, one of the beautiful things about writing, one of the reasons that I think everyone should write, one of the reasons that you, if you are trying to write, should embrace writing, is that the first draft that you create doesn't have to be perfect. You can create something that's completely messy, and you actually can go back through and fix it up and make it solid, make it clear and concise before you ever send it out into the world. Kind of like I did with yesterday's episode. I think there's sort of the good ideas are there, but not necessarily as clear and concise as I want them to be. You know, when it comes to writing screenplays, one of the biggest challenges that writers often have is you've got so many ideas, so many things you want to convey, so many nuances that you want to get across, that very often you include too many ideas, or you include them in too confusing a way, so that when the reader reads what you've written, they're not entirely clear on what it is you're saying. The story that you're conveying may actually be quite different to the story you think you're conveying when you put the words on the page. A little bit like the episode yesterday. The idea that I was trying to convey might not be as clear in your head after watching that episode as it is in my head trying to convey it to you. So I was watching that. I'm always trying to think about how to turn this into a prompt for you, how to make it something specific and tangible and useful for you. And what I sort of realized was, why don't I take the basic idea combine that with the whole notion of being clear and concise. Now, to give you a little bit of example, what I was trying to say yesterday was, if we apply the strategy of the fact that the industry is completely open to pretty much anyone today. We can make movies anywhere. We can distribute movies anywhere. How do we strategically use that to get you where you're trying to go? I know you don't want to spend the rest of your life making little tiny low budget films. This isn't about making low budget films rather than the big budget studio films. This is, if there's 10,000 people trying to vie for that top spot, how can we get to that top spot? If the doors are closed, if no one wants to read your spec screenplay, if you can't get your project into the hands of a producer, if when you do, they're not actually going to read your script anyway, what can we do strategically? And so what I'm suggesting is that what we can do strategically is we can start by making indie films. We can start by making smaller, low-budget films that have a kick-ass story, that are powerful, writer-led projects. So when we think about the no-budget or the low-budget indie film world, what we tend to see are what I call production-driven projects, where you have no money or no resources really to make films with. What you tend to do is you tend to take whatever resources are available to you, craft them into a story that uses your existing locations, that uses your existing actors and their existing wardrobe, and makes all that stuff make sense within the story. But the problem is that you're driven by production, and so you're not as focused on making that extraordinary story. And story is everything. Story is the thing that's going to connect the audience. So my basic premise is that if we lead with story, we're actually going to capture more audience. We're going to get people more interested in the films that we create. If we do that at a lower budget, at an indie film level, at least at the start, what we can do is we can build the foundation that gives you the credits, that gives you the projects that you can show people that you can do this. And as you develop the skills, so that when it's time to go open up those doors and have those meetings because they like your low budget project, then you're also ready with the bigger budget project. So hopefully that's a little more clear, a little more concise. Now, the way that I'm going to go about doing it via this series, via this project, is I want to create the independent film studio that makes. Originally, the idea was to make 3 to 6 films a year. Because I failed in building that over the past 20 years, it's actually morphed into a different goal, a different vision. My vision now is to make 50 plus films a year. So how do we actually do 50 plus films a year? Well, if we do them at a lower budget level, if we do them as an entry point, if we do them as an educational way to teach writers how to write for production, then ultimately it can be self-sustaining. The money that we make, the proceeds that we make by simply selling lower budget projects will enable us to keep funding the ongoing projects. I'm going to make an episode probably in the next day or two talking about sort of the money side of all of this stuff. So my goal is, and the whole sort of point of all this is to help writers anywhere go out and do that kind of thing. If there's somebody watching right now, I've been very afraid all along that if I put all these ideas out there, somebody's going to go, that's a great idea, and they're going to go out and run off and do it. And the thing that I keep having to keep reminding myself of is that it's going to be very hard for someone to go out and do that because they don't have the production, the story development infrastructure in place. And so that's what I've built. That's what I want to share. And you can go off and do it one-off on your own. Absolutely. But what I'm trying to build is a system that grows and builds this, that becomes self-sustaining as it goes along. So think of it as a sort of a production output engine. So the films can keep getting spit out to Netflix or Amazon or maybe our own service at some point. So that's sort of the sort of strategic goal. Now the reason I wanted to cover that today is because I don't think it was entirely clear, or I don't think it was simple enough. And so the lesson for today is really go ahead and spit out the idea onto the page in whatever form it comes out initially. By doing that, it gives you a chance to see what it is. It gives you a chance to see how far off the mark you were, like I felt I was yesterday. And it enables you to go, right, I was off the mark for this, and this reason. Let's condense that. Let's make it clear and simple and represent the idea. And by doing so, you're rewriting, essentially, so that when you present your idea to someone else, you're presenting it in a more polished, more concise way. So it will help them pick it up and see it and understand it a little bit more clearly, right? So I'm obviously applying these things to what I'm building and how I can share with you what I'm building and help you understand the bigger picture. But obviously, these things apply across the board. These things apply in every little situation. One of those things that really keeps us from creating. I see comments of people. I've talked to thousands of writers over the years. I know that the thing that's stopping you, the thing that's preventing you from continuing to move forward or even taking action in the first place is that you're afraid of not hitting the mark. You're afraid of not achieving the thing that you have in your mind. You're afraid of it not being good, or someone laughing at you, or somebody ridiculing you, or somebody saying, okay, that's an ambitious idea, but that's stupid, or you're not good enough to do that. People may be looking at me right now thinking exactly the same thing. Here's the thing, it doesn't matter. Here's the thing, I've put out a vlog, and one of the days I'm pressed for time, and so I sort of put out a vlog, and then later on I go, God, that's not very concise, that's not very succinct, that's not very clear for my audience. I don't want to put that stuff out there for them. Yeah, but you know what? I can't go back and change the past. That video stays up. That video is there forever. That video still has good stuff in it. But at the end of the day, if I live by the regret or the angst or the fear or the worry that the previous episode wasn't as good as the caliber that I want it to be, then I'm stuck in the past. I'm stuck in the ideas or the theory or the ambition that I had, and I'm not actually putting it into practice. And so today I really wanted to make this episode about showing you that it's okay to do that, because that will show you where to go. I've said this a couple times. I'm probably going to repeat it again and again throughout the series. When you have that idea in your head, as soon as you put it on the page, it meets with the reality. Reality shows you the obstacles, and then you have to just simply adapt to the obstacles to overcome them to get where you're trying to go. Now, as you do that and you take another step forward, you may meet with other bigger obstacles you couldn't even imagine at the start of it. And this is the real reason that it's most challenging for writers. We think somehow that we can imagine the whole journey at the start of the journey. I assure you, it's not possible to imagine the whole journey. If you could imagine the whole journey, it would be dead simple to get there. As you take action on the journey, that's when the obstacles pop up. That's when the challenges face you. That's when you have to see and identify and discover how to circumvent those obstacles. It doesn't happen until you start taking the action along the way. So, today's daily prompt, let's bring it back to a prompt for you. At the end of the day, when you look at what you've done so far or wherever you're at in your process, whatever project you're developing, whatever you've got going on in your imagination, as you think about all that and you think about the complexities of it, I want you to think about, are there ways to simplify this? Are there ways to be clear? When it comes to filmmaking, at least, when you write a screenplay, when someone reads the screenplay, they need to be able to imagine the movie in their mind. The only way that you're going to be able to do that is if your writing is simple and clear and direct, and they can imagine the pictures of the movie from reading your words on the page. So as you think about what you're going to write, as you think about how you're going to present all these ideas, I want you to try to strip away all the complexity and all the layers of it at first. Simply identify clearly and distinctly, what is it that I'm trying to create? Now, this can be thematically, this can be your journey itself, this can be a specific scene or a character trait, or any aspect of your story can be taken with this little sort of lens, focus it on that and go, how can I make this clear, simple, direct? If you do that, then your work is gonna resonate with the reader or the viewer far more effectively than if you try to sort of dance around the idea or get too complex or too much detail in it. As witness yesterday's episode. Makes sense, and if you go back and watch it with the full context of the series, or if you watch it, 5 years into the future after we've built this whole thing, it's going to make perfect, crystal clear sense. But as we're going along, it's kind of a first draft. Don't worry about creating first drafts. Just do the work. Just take action, because tomorrow we can fix and refine it. Any tomorrow we can fix and refine it. That's the beauty and the nature of writing. Tap into that, plug into that. There's power in that. And if you apply that, you're going to have a killer day. So take action with today's daily prompt. Don't just move on. Think about it, process it, take physical action. We'll see you tomorrow.